Hello, everybody. Welcome to our channel, Scientology Peeling the Onion. My name is Mark Fisher, and I'm here with my co-host, Janis Gillham Grady. Janis, how you doing tonight?
I'm all right. G'day, everybody. And hey, thanks for logging in and joining us tonight. This is a very special show, a tribute to my stepfather. A lot of people didn't know that he used to be married to my mother. That was his first wife. And so I got to know Heber as a stepfather. And we're going to also have on the show with us Carrere de la Carriere, who married Heber and became my stepmother when they got married. And we're still very close today and have many laughs together and stories to tell.
Yeah, I just wanted to welcome everybody in. Sorry, I was just going to welcome everybody in the chat. Okay, so you could ask any questions, anything that you would like in the chat. You're welcome to. Also, any comments you like or anything like that. Let us know where you're from, where you're coming from right now, and we're going to bring on Karen here in just a minute. And we have photographs, right, Janis, that you have of Heber and your mother and Karen and the family and all that sort of thing. And why don't you tell everybody while they're doing that, he just recently passed, and what was the circumstances or whatever? How old was he?
Yeah, we don't have a lot of information. We just know that he passed. I assume it was around Monday. That's when we got word of it. He was 90 years old. He was born in 1935, and his birthday, I always thought, he told me his birthday was on Halloween, so I always thought it was October 31st, but Wikipedia says it's November 30th, so I'm going to have to do a little research into that and find out exactly when it was. But he got birthday cards from me every Halloween. even after I left the SEAL, I'd still send him a birthday card. But we don't know. I assume he died of old age, of course. His memory had been fading for probably the last 10 to 15, maybe more years. Karen had information on that, of where he'd been on the free winds and he was losing his memory. And then I had heard that he was in a home in Marietta, down by Temecula. But the Church of Scientology, in one of their statements, I saw that they were saying that he died in his apartment. Now, I don't know what apartment that is. That's what they also said for Marion Dendu, that she died in her apartment. But maybe they're calling a room in an old folk home an apartment. I have conflicting information on that. So that's the information I have. I don't know when there's celebration of life, and if there is one. I don't know. I assume he's being cremated, because that's what he had done with my mother. And he then spread her out in the ocean, and he'll probably want that for himself. So that's the information I have.
Okay. Well, why don't we bring on our
okay, let's bring on Karen.
Karen de la Carriere. Hi, Karen. How you doing?
Hi, everybody. Hi. Hello.
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Yes, thanks for coming on. And I'm going to enjoy doing this with you, because we have so many memories together.
We do. We really do.
And we both had a lot of love for the same person. Heber was always great with me. Yes. And I know you had a very close relationship with him until Miscavige got involved and tried to split you both up. And successfully
Miscavige ordered the divorce. And
yes.
Steve Hall has a site called Scientology Cult. And one of his articles is how many people David Miscavige ordered the divorce of. And it goes on, and like 165 people at Inpage were ordered to divorce their partner. So Heber ordering that I divorce, Miscavige ordering that I divorce Heber was not a fluke or an unusual occurrence.
Right.
He ruled with an iron fist, and he felt he could dictate whether you had a child, whether you didn't have a child, whether you had to abort, whether you could get married, whether you couldn't. he created himself as the ultimate dictator. Mhm.
Right. Right. All right. I'm gonna cover with the first photo I have of Heber at a young age when he was in high school on the swim team. And he's the one on the left. And now Heber, a lot of people, well, people know this, but Heber grew up in a Mormon family. His father had 8 wives. He was a polygamist, 8 wives. And of the 8 wives, he had 6 at one given time where they were alive, not 8 all alive. But from what Heber told me, the way the family was set up was each wife had her own home and raised her own children, and all the boys worked in the field together, and all the girls did the daycare and watched all the babies and looked after the kids. And that's how the father ran the farm. Now, his father, Carl Jentzsch, was very
Brutal.
brutal. Okay, brutal. And I actually have heard that he did beat the children. He used a fire prong from the fireplace and poked it at the kids. And Karen, did Heber give you other stories about his being raised by his father?
He did say that it was a horrible, very, very domineering.
Right.
You must obey. And his father used a cattle prod. Do you have that picture I sent you? The cattle prod, 60 Minutes? Mark?
No, I don't. I don't have it. I'm sorry. I didn't see it.
Oh, I sent it to both of you. Jenny, you don't have it
I
handy?
saw a video of him being interviewed, but I didn't see a
Well,
cattle
I'm
prod.
talking about the cover picture of
Oh,
Heber grew
okay.
up with a
No.
cattle prod. A cattle prod
Okay.
is a heavy electrical gadget used on cows and bison to herd them along a certain pathway. And that was used on Heber and his polygamous brothers and sisters. No, not sisters,
Right.
brothers. The brothers who worked in the
Brothers.
potato field. Only if the production was not enough. This made Heber obsessed on actual production. There was massive engram underlying that.
Right.
Engram is
Well,
simply,
Heber had told me he left home very young. He wanted to just get out of the house. And I believe he was 14 when he said that he walked away from the Mormon faith. And his father, having been a polygamist in the 50s, then the government came into Utah and started arresting people who had multiple marriages. And a man with 5 wives turned in Heber's father, and got him jailed. So Heber's father got jailed and was separated from the family. And his dad was, when his time was up to leave the jail, the guards didn't want him to leave because he's the one that kept everybody in place in the jail. And that kind of tells you the strictness he had with his own children, if he could do that with inmates. And, he kept that place in line, apparently. Anyway, I keep seeing things saying Heber had 42 brothers and sisters. There was 42 children. No, there was 42 children. And I remember in 73, the last one, number 42, was born. And Heber said, and I was like, oh, is it going to be a boy or a girl? And he said, we're waiting to see, because there was 20 boys and 21 girls. So they were looking for a boy, but it was a girl. So it ended up with 20 boys and 22 girls. And the mother of that last child, I believe she's still around today, but I know that last child is, and Heber was in touch with her for all these years. But the mother was Heber's high school girlfriend. So wife number 8, mother number 8 was Heber's girlfriend. And
that the father had a relationship with?
Yeah, well after Heber had left and so forth. But yeah, but within that family of 42 kids, we look at it as, oh, that's a half brother, a half sister. They didn't look at it that way. That was their brothers and their sisters, and they all grew up as brothers and sisters. And though they all had different mothers, they were Jentzsch kids, and that's how they looked at it.
Right,
And that's how Heber was. Yeah, and that's how Heber was. Heber himself had 3 brothers and sisters, in that there was 4 kids from his mother, Pauline. There was David, who was the oldest. There was Carol, Heber, and Dorothy. Dorothy is still alive. And I know that when she had financial trouble, Heber would send her some money so that she could go to family reunions. Though he wouldn't go himself, he did send money so that Dorothy could go to the family reunion. And he told me once, when everyone showed up with all the kids, there was over 200 people at the immediate family reunion from all the 42 kids.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot of kids.
Yeah, a lot of kids. Yeah, a very different upbringing than what we're used to.
Yeah.
You know.
Here's a question from Deanna Ross. Hi, Deanna. How did Heber get into Scientology? That's what she's asking in the chat.
Yeah, Karen, do you have information on that? All I know, well, I'll say what I know, and then Karen, you can jump in. But what I know is Heber. He worked at a carnival. He used to get odd jobs singing and so forth. He worked his way through college and paid for it himself. He then he came to Los Angeles to do some acting and to do some singing. He was a member of a band called Thank You World. And he had long hair and he had a hippie headband. And that's how he looked when he met my mother. And yeah, there he is right there in the front right with the striped pants on. You can see the long hair. I couldn't find the picture that my mother had of Heber with the headband on. But that picture there, over on the top left, is Amanda Ambrose. And the front looking down is Jan Stone with her sister, Joyce Miller. And then right behind him is Rhonda Miller. Right behind him is Joyce Myers. They were sisters that worked with my mom. And Sue Pomeroy is between Joyce and Heber. And Emily Becker, who I believe is still an auditor at the Flag Service Org, is in the middle in the back. And next to her on the left, between Amanda and her, is Kenny Lipton, who is the brother of Peggy Lipton from Mod Squad, married to Quincy Jones. So anyway, so yeah, he was, and we have in here, Mark, can you pull that up? Some of the little acting jobs that Heber did.
Oh, yeah. It'll take me a sec.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Okay, so this is Combat. I guess that was a TV series.
Oh, I watched it as a kid. I loved it in the 1960s. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so he had a bit part in it. I don't think he had a big part. And then he also was in one of the episodes of Mod Squad with Peggy Lipton. And I can only assume that Peggy got him the job because he was just starting out in Scientology, and she was already on OT3 at the Advanced Organization in Los Angeles by the time Heber got into Scientology. And then he had a part in Paint Your Wagon with Clint Eastwood, but you'll never find him in that movie because all his parts went on the editing room floor. And then he was also in 1776. And there's a picture of him. When he was in the Guardian's office working at Celebrity Center, he was doing some stuff, anti-IRS stuff. And he went to the studio and got his old costume, and he walked around anti-IRS in his 1776 costume. And I guess, yeah, that's it for those.
That's it.
Karen, do you have any other information on how he got in?
Well, throughout the years we were married, he got in checks for his performance in Paint Your Wagon. And I do believe he did sing. I don't think that met the cutting floor. There was one song sung with Heber's good voice. And he
That's
got
it.
residual checks. I don't think
Yeah.
you get checks when you were cut out of the movie because you
Yeah.
didn't participate. I remember, and we used to send more money to Pauline. We knew she lived frugally. And even though we were on Sea Org pay, sometimes, we just were very, very, Pauline was lovely. Heber took me to Salt Lake City a few times. I met all the families, and in the basement where these families lived, they had preserved food in case of an atomic war, all kinds of preserves. The polygamists have a culture of saving food that you could then eat if there was no more food in grocery stores.
Well,
And
it's not just the polygamists, it's all the Mormons, all the Latter-day Saints do that. I have friends who are part of the Mormon church, and they have cans of food stored under the beds, in closets, in the garage, all over the house. You'll find emergency food.
emergency food, yeah.
Yeah.
And because he was, by the way, the Church of LDS do not like the polygamists being called Mormon. They're what we
Right.
would call a squirrel outcast group. They're completely, utterly, Heber, I know this very well because Heber did get to meet with the elders. There are 12 elders that are the senior most echelon of the Church of LDS. And Heber, on one of our trips, got an audience. His mission was to smooth their feathers so Scientology was accepted by the Church of LDS. He always was supposed to do something with other religious leaders.
Right.
And on one of our visits, I know Heber was very chuffed and happy that he acted. I mean, he still had this huge respect for Mormon elders, but he did say polygamists were spat on. You can't call them Mormon. That's very offensive to the Church of LDS. They're not Mormons.
Yes.
They were the lowest of the low. This breeding like rabbits, on and on and on, having children was, I'm talking about the Mormon viewpoint of them. So there's always a hierarchy, just like many churches have a hierarchy.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So then, 1973, my mother and Heber got married, and my mom would not marry Heber unless he joined the Sea Org. So that's how he ended up in the Sea Org. And he ended up going into the Guardian's office and doing public relations for Celebrity Center. So he and my mom worked closely together. And the Guardian's office, Jane Kember, hated my mother, though they twinned on the briefing course together back in 1962. Jane had it out for my mom, and Heber, used to try and calm things down between them, or, to soften the blow towards Yvonne. And he defended her well, and he toured with her. They'd tour around the U.S. To go in the different orgs to help the orgs and meet different celebrities and get keys to the city. And Heber used to perform, and Mom got, she had different performances going on at Celebrity Center, poetry by candlelight, and, different groups would all get up there and perform. And Heber, as a singer, I'd hear these stories, and I hadn't met him yet, but I'd hear these stories about how Heber would sing this song about Old Blue. And someone said they were sitting there in the audience, and Heber singing the song on Old Blue, and a dog came in off the street, just a stray dog, walked down the center of the aisle and sat there and watched Heber as he sang the song, and then got up and left. Anyway, I heard that from several different people, so I believe it happened. Anyway, I had not met Heber when he got married to my mom. But a few months later, I was 16 years old at the time. And then a few months later, my mom arranged for Terry and I to come out on our leave of absence because we'd been on the ship since 1968, January 68, and never gone anywhere until 1973 when we went to Los Angeles. And Mom met us in New York, and we got to see Celebrity Center New York and meet different people. And Heber was there with her. And then we went to Los Angeles and finally got to see Celebrity Center that everybody talked about. And and on this leave, we were going to go to the movies. And my mother, trying to get from her office to the parking lot, Heber used to give her about 10, 15 minutes, because he knew that she wouldn't get there because people would stop her along the way. Well, we were running late for the movies. So Terry and I and Heber are in the car waiting, and Mom doesn't show up. Mom doesn't show up. Mom doesn't show up. So he's like, girls, go and get your mother. So we go in and we start just seeing her, walking her through and telling people, sorry, we got to get to the movies. And we get her out to the car. We get in the car, and this couple, public, come running up the car. Oh, Yvonne, so great to see you. We had a question. And Mom, of course, she winds down the window to start chatting with them. Heber goes, we're out of here. And he just floored that car, screeching out of the parking lot with these people just kind of standing there. And my mother was known as a very soft-spoken person. She was not soft-spoken at Heber for cutting her communication with her public. But Heber didn't care. We got to the movies on time. But that was the only time I actually saw her really mad. So anyway, and then, and another funny thing, they had to go out to an event, and Mom had gotten Heber, I guess it was a discount deal or something, downtown in the clothing part of town. She got Heber a white suit, and they were going to go to this event. And Heber's like, Yvonne, I don't want to wear the white suit. A man doesn't wear a white suit. This is before John Travolta in a white suit in Saturday Night Live. But anyway, so Heber was so resistant, but Mom was like, come on, let's go. They go, and then they come back late, and Heber is filthy. The whole white suit is filthy. What had happened, the car had broken down, and Heber had to get under the car to fix it. And he had a coat hanger as a antenna on the car. So he got that off, and he got back under. He took off his jacket, of course, and he got under and he tied things up using this coat hanger. He gets up to go start the car. His keys are in his pocket. So of course he needs to, his hands are all greasy. So he puts his hands in the pocket to get the keys. I don't know why he didn't ask my mother to just get the keys out of the pocket, but he had to ruin that suit because he didn't want to ever wear it again. And anyway, so I just
Karen,
thought that was a cute story.
Yes. Yeah, Karen, why don't you have a story you want to share about Heber? And we'll just jump back and forth a little bit here, so that Karen, you can participate.
Okay. The first thing I want to say is Heber never, ever did a hate video on me. David Miscavige has an absolute trait of getting relatives, friends, co-workers at IntBase to go up and give the most horrific, made-up, manufactured stories about how bad you were. And the worst, I think, was David Miscavige's father. Oh, God, they had a stream of hate videos. Heber was never persuaded to make a video complaining about me or saying bad things about me. And I know he was pressured too. They want the ex-husband or whatever. I've got over 650 videos on my channel. I never once said one bad word about Heber. I can't. There wasn't anything wrong. So I think that's something I cherish. He was kind of loyal to the fact that he was not going to go on camera to say how evil I was, what a bad wife I was, or whatever. And I kind of feel that says a lot about Heber, because he was pummeled and abused by Miscavige horrifically.
Yeah.
Mike Rinder mentions that he was struck 10 times in front of Rinder. Imagine how many times Rinder wasn't there and Heber was struck.
Yeah.
And
yeah, Heber was not one to talk badly about people.
No, not at all, except psychiatrists. He would go
Psychiatrist.
after them.
Yeah. Yeah.
that was his job, interview. But also that was it. Yeah. Everything was
you look
evil
at his
psychs,
old interviews, he's going after the psychs. Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to just relay one story that I had just briefly. I knew Heber, I didn't deal with him a lot, but I knew him quite a bit. He'd come up to the base and I knew him. He was always pleasant, always, great personality, the whole thing. But I was telling Janis this earlier, like right before I left, in May of 1990, I escaped for the first time and came with the intention of coming back so that they would Miscavige would put me in the RPF so I could be with my wife. But instead of doing that, he made me the deputy de-weeder at the Gold Base, which is 600 acres, never to be posted as the de-weeder in charge. So that's fine. I thought it was fine. Everybody thought it was funny. So I'm out there pulling weeds and stuff. But Heber at the time was also doing manual labor. He had been removed and he was there with Milt Wolf and Ron Norton and me, and we would eat lunch together in the dining room. And I had just gotten back and, I was a little, uncertain to what was going on. And Miscavige had an issue put out canceling all of my certificates in Scientology, like everything I'd had done, and I was crushed, and Heber was there for me. He could tell I was really upset about this. And we had I remember a really nice, he was so kind to me, conversation that we had at lunch over that issue and about, trying to cheer me up, saying, hey, come on, it's going to get better and this type of thing. And that's the way Heber was. He was always very friendly and very, very caring about people. He was never vindictive, that at least in my experience.
Right. Well, during that time period, Mark, that you're talking about, I was also in trouble on the decks. And so Heber and I, because he was up at the Int base or Gold base, and we would always take the bus. They would take the bus in together and take it home. And then when I got out of trouble and I was up to drive my car, I would go and pick him up and we'd drive into the base together, and we did renovations together. We became very close. This was while Karen was being kept down in LA and going through trouble. But Heber, he'd get cleaned up and go down and do an interview and come back, only get yelled at by Miscavige and thrown into cramming for talking about the psychs or for not controlling the conversation and keeping it the direction he needed to keep it, and it was just ridiculous to watch Heber being verbally abused and having to go to cramming. No matter what he said, there was always fault being found about it by Miscavige. It was not good.
He got incredible heat after every show he did. He didn't do this right. He didn't do that right. He didn't attack psychiatry enough. Not that he didn't talk about psychiatry. Miscavige wanted to use Heber's interviews to eradicate Scientology. And you can't show your obsessively, these are medical doctors who have MD certificates and globally just ranting about psychiatry for the entire interview would make the interview bad. But Heber got punished to the point where when a phone call came that he needed to do an interview, he would key in, meaning he would get restimulated to the point where I sometimes saw him shaking because he knew of the retribution and the aftermath of what would happen after an interview. When I married him, he was what was called AGPR Los Angeles, Assistant Guardian for Public Relations. After the first year of our marriage, he got promoted to president. He wasn't the president when I married him. He was AGPR GLA. And then he was made president. And he was always very much under the domination and whip of David Miscavige. At one point, David Miscavige made a doll that was a Heber doll. It looked like Heber and so on. And then Miscavige would talk to the doll while Heber was at the back. Miscavige would mock the doll, but he would only address the doll even though Heber was standing behind the doll. This mocking was psychologically wearing Heber down. When you mentioned how Heber started the onset of his Alzheimer's, dementia, whatever you want to call it, was only after the brutality of Freewin's 12 hours a day cleaning the bilges. Rinda, Markiega, and Heber had to work with no hazmat equipment, no protective equipment, work cleaning out the lowest, dingiest part of the ship, the bilges, which collects the debris, the bacteria. No, in most ships, machines clean the bilges, not humans. It's a machine job. But to humiliate them, that's what Miscavige made them do. Now, this went on for like 2 weeks, 12 hours a day. He was in his 60s. And it was Ulf Olofsson who was designated to take Heber back to the base. Even Heber, they didn't trust that Heber would flee. You don't go back to the base alone. There's always an escort. So Ulf Olofsson let me know that Heber came out of this 2-week cleaning of the bilges, 12 hours a day, talking gibberish. He was incoherent. This is the first time I ever heard that his mind was not right. He was just completely non sequitur. And Ulf was just didn't know what to do or how to handle it. He would talk, but it was madness. This was just after the last humongous punishment. Did you know that Heber did the person for 9 years? Did you know that? He was in for 9 years.
No, I did not.
I got one of my last comms live with Mike Rinder. I said, Mike, how long was he in there? He was in there. I knew he couldn't talk to Alexander because he was, but 9 years. That's elder abuse.
Yes,
but no one would go to law enforcement. Jani, Mark, explain why no one would see elder abuse and not report to Hemet police. Can you just explain to the audience why that would never happen?
Well, it's hard to understand, from an outside perspective, but inside, I mean, Heber obviously was a true believer in LRH and Scientology. Yes. I mean, he had to be, because to put up with that kind of abuse, you have to have a core belief that what you're doing or what's being done is deserved and in your mind, because we're here to clear the planet and we're here because of L. Ron Hubbard and this and that, because sounds fantastic. It sounds amazing that people would put up with that kind of abuse and still be there. Now, after a while, I bet you after a while, Heber, like you said, he was medically not doing well mentally and this and that. And at that point, he kind of would lose his ability to make decisions on his own. But, it's amazing to me that, like, this whole thing, like you mentioned with the puppet and stuff, I wouldn't have put up with that. The first time I got attacked, I was like, so it's a chance I get, I'm getting out of here, because it's not Scientology. That wasn't why I was there. But, people like Heber and Mike Rinder and Guillaume Leserve and all that, I guess they felt that they needed to stick around. It makes no sense to me. The other thing too is that when you're locked up in the hole and also at the gold base, at that point, they had bars on the windows and they had fences around it. And it was, it wasn't like you could just go out and leave. So
Right.
Those are the things that I would mention.
Yeah, they're under guard, so you can't leave. And Heber had an assistant who always walked around with him. Apparently, he had some spine issues, so he was very bent over as he got older. And instead of, normally you'd get a person a wheelchair, but they don't believe in wheelchairs because then you're the effective things. So Heber walked around being held up by his assistant, and who also wrote all his emails for him and handled all communications, because he was moving on in years. And the assistant apparently was still with him until his last day. So they definitely knew, all the family and the friends and so forth. And he was still considered the president. Nobody knew this was going on behind the scenes with him, that he was being so abused.
Are you talking about Nettie Alcock?
Yeah, Nettie Alcock. Yeah, she was his assistant for a long time. I don't know if she was his assistant to the end, but I did hear he had an assistant to the end.
In the assisted living where he was for several years, Nettie Alcock was the bodyguard to ensure no CO visited. I'll tell you a little story that I've never told. This is absolutely the first time I'm telling it. It's to do with Heber and Alexander. I made a big noise of the fact that Heber Jentzsch was only able to see his son 11 times in 15 years. 11 times. And for 2.5 hours at most. Sunday mornings, Sea Org is allowed to do their laundry and clean their berthing. But you could take that little sandwich of time and in that time, because I flapped I was on ex-Scientology message where I was here, there, and everywhere. He was in Scientology, a father can only see his son 11 times in 15 years. And they read everything. They are listening. OSA is listening in completely, absolutely. So Heber suddenly was allowed, it only lasted, half a dozen times. Heber was now allowed to see Alexander in the 2.5 hour slot, right? So Alexander by now had heard about the hole. Alexander would fly to pick up checks. He was quite a hot wretch. And people in Seattle, in Houston and all that, the hole became known on the internet thanks to Mark Headley, who was leaking. Mark Headley was telling stories of the hole. He was leaking it. And when Alexander went to pick up a nice fat check, people approached him and said, you know that Heber's in prison. Heber's in the hole. So when Alexander had breakfast time, a 2.5 hour slot with Heber, Alexander asked Heber about the hole. And then he said to him, they went out for a McDonald's burger And now the 2.5 hours is up. And they are just outside the HEB in a car. They're watching the clock because you are timed. If you're given 2.5 hours, it's 2.5 hours, not 5 minutes after. They're looking at, and Alexander said, Dad, why don't you just blow with me? Why don't you just come? Why don't you just leave this? I don't want you going back in the hole. Come with me. Let's just get out of here. When Alexander told me this, I was breathless. He was encouraging Heber to blow. Never told the story. His dad to blow.
Yeah.
And Heber hung his head and sort of went into grief. He knew he was headed back to the hole. And he said, son, I just can't. I can't do that. But he didn't say, don't talk like that. That's SP talk. Heber didn't bark back at it. He went, I've been assigned as president of the, I can't do that, Alexander. And he went into a kind of grief, and Alexander gave up too easily. I told him later, he took the first no, I can't from Heber, and he dropped it. But I thought it was fantastic that Alexander had the guts to ask Heber to blow. True story.
Yeah. And good point. And I actually feel, I know when I was in there was many times I wanted to leave, but it was like, if I left, how would that affect all the people that know me and depend on me? And who's going to take care of the staff and defend them? And I think the same thing was like with Heber as with my mother. There she was as in charge of Celebrity Center, having built it up from nothing, and everyone looked upon her. And if she left, what would that do to the public relations of Scientology if a top person left? And I think Heber was the same way. And that's where, when my mother passed, it later hit me. She had no way out but to die. Mm-hmm. And I think the same thing with Heber. He had no way out but to start forgetting things and get old, and so he doesn't have those responsibilities. Because if Heber left, even when he was in the old folk home or blew from the free winds, what a PR disaster that would be. And when when you're in there, you still believe in Scientology. And so you think if you leave and ruin the public relations or the view people have of Scientology, you're going to ruin your future in coming back.
Yeah, Janis, I was going to say, just you mentioned that this would be a much stronger reason, or person that Miscavige wouldn't let go, which is Shelley. You know what I mean? It's the same thing. It's like, it would be a huge PR disaster if Shelley left Scientology and started speaking out. Miscavige would never let that happen. And I'm sure that Heber was on the list of people he is never leaving, because if he did and he went out and spoke out, it would be a huge PR disaster, which is unfortunate. That's why they were prisoners,
Yeah.
Well, let me tell you something that was just leaked to me. To me. David Miscavige has done a memo to all staff. And the memo is flowery, praising Heber. Oh my God, it's a fanboy. Heber's loyalty, Heber's contribution. David Miscavige never writes a memo when someone dies. He tortured Heber for the last 15 years of Heber's life. So to cover his ass with all the horrible, intense stories, he issues this memo. And it is just unbelievable sugar and spice. After the brutalities, the beatings, how Heber was forced to throw himself into a lake of icy cold water. There's a lake at St. Hill, and Guillaume Marc Jaeger Mike Rinder and Heber would have to go to St. Hill for the IAS meetings, IAS events. But Miscavige wanted them to know, just because you're putting on a tuxedo for the event doesn't mean that you get off the hook. You are criminal. You bunch of criminal. And every day you're going to walk the plank and throw yourselves into the lake. This story has been told extensively by Marty Rathburn and Mike Rinder. You know, Scientology has had the ritual of throwing people overboard. So this is where it comes from. You're supposed to cleanse yourself of sins by immersing yourself in water. However, in the month of November, December, when they have the IAS event, it's freezing cold at St. Hill. It's England, for God's sake. So they had to hurl themselves into the lake in November. Heber was in his maybe late 60s, again, elder abuse, or mid 60s. And every day they had to walk the plank. The PR guy who was executing this was Bob. Do you know the name Bob? He was a favorite of DM. He was the head of PR in the United Kingdom. Bob Keenan, Bob, whatever. And Bob would march them, and they'd hurl himself into the lake. Anyway, I thought it was so interesting that this memo of flowery ice cream and chocolate eclairs of Heber's wonderful, beautiful man that he was for the Sea Org would be put out in a memo by David Miscavige. This has to be a cover-up for the abuse he did. I'll send you guys a copy of the memo when I get it.
Okay, great. And, you know, that reminds me of a story. Jackson was just here in Vegas this past weekend. So we're all sitting around the table, of course, telling stories and nattering away and having some good laughs. And then Jackson tells us the story about Heber and Mike Rinder and Hera O'Hare. And I think there was somebody else all having to, they would just set up a tent and sleep outside at night. They weren't able to set up the tent, so they had to just sleep outside. And Miscavige was there ordering all this. And their baths were with a hose. And this is in the middle of winter, so they had to shower, strip down, and just hose each other down. I mean, it's like, what world is this? You know, this is 2025, or it was the 2020s. It's like, this is unbelievable cruelty.
Yeah.
So that's my 5 cents on that.
I tell you, all three of us, we left before the horror became absolute horror.
Yeah.
I just cannot thank myself enough for just walking out the door and renouncing it all. You know, the sadism of Miscavige knows no bounds. Mm-hmm.
Right.
I want to shift back just to bounce back to some good stories also about.
Well, that's Heber's what I was going to do.
I said like this is Heber with John Travolta, and they were very close, weren't they, Karen and Janis? I mean, whenever they needed John to do something, John Travolta, Heber would be the one to, reach out to him to get him to do different PR stuff, right?
Yes, very much so. I agree. We should talk about some good. I want to tell a thrilling story of how I blue flagged to join Heber. For the first part of our marriage, Heber was the PR for Los Angeles. He couldn't leave. There was one flap after another, and he was the spokesman. He wasn't president yet. He was simply AGPR Los Angeles. And I was the Class 12 CS managing the delivery of the L's. Now, I want to tell you, Class 12 case supervisors do not grow on trees. You try to find a replacement when you're a Class 12 CS. And Scientology has a doctrine. You cannot leave your post or job till you replace yourself. Now, that's totally violated when you're hurled into the RPF. Nobody cares. Hey, there's no replacement. They can violate it if you're thrown into disgrace. But if you want to leave, you cannot leave without a replacement. So Heber and I were stuck. He couldn't leave. Who would handle the PR? And who would handle the Class 12 LCSing? We were stuck. And then a funny thing happened. Hubbard got very, very ill. And David Mayo, who were senior CS flag land base, went to audit Hubbard.
Right.
From which the knots evolved. And because he left, they needed a very senior person to replace David David Mayo leaving. And because Ray Mithoff had trained to Dean of Tech, which is the high, they didn't want Jeff Walker. Jeff Walker should have inherited he was deputy senior, but they didn't. Management did not want Jeff Walker there. So a bright idea was solved. Karen goes and replaces Ray Mithoff in Celebrity Center. Ray Mithoff comes to Flag to be senior CS Flag land base, which he did.
Right.
So that was the trade. But the Class 12 HEC hung on to me with bulldog. We don't care. Here's the policy. You can't violate. Who's going to see us the Class 12? You can't go. And then David Mayo was a big shot at the time. He had clout. He was auditing Hubbard daily. He was known to be, even the messengers were nice to him and this and that. And he put in his handwriting, Karen is to go to Celebrity Center, take over as senior CS, and Ray Mithoff, Dean of Tech, can come and be. So this was in writing. Now I had ability to leave. I mean, I was married and he used to come and see me whenever he could. Heber would do a weekend, he'd do speeches and he'd come over. But we were husband and wife not living together, stuck. So I could brandish this David Mayo authorization to leave. And I slowly started sending my luggage ahead. And then I knew when the motor pool did runs 3 times a day because people were arriving at Flag. The motor pool consisted of several coaches with 2 or 3 CO drivers who would go back and forth to Tampa Airport. And I crawled into one of these and I hid below the seats. I was a stowaway. But I crawled in I knew the times they left was posted outside the motor pool. This was the 7:00 run. It was posted when they would leave. At 10 to 7, I crawled in, hid under the coat thing. And 7:00, boom, my ticket was already booked. Subsequently, Scientology is able to look at any ticket booked because they've got some travel agency status. In those days, we're talking 1978. They couldn't tell I had a flight. So I arrived at Tampa Airport. As the motor pool guy was distracted, I crawled out of the seat and got into Tampa Airport. And now my plane left in about an hour. But Scientology, the ELS unit found out I was gone. They needed, And over the speakers, lo and behold, nonstop, Karen Jentzsch, could you please report to American, whatever it was. Karen Jentzsch, you need to report to blah, blah. And I knew they were hunting for me. So I went into a toilet and I stood above the toilet covers. So when people looked under, it looked like an empty toilet. I learned this from a movie. You can stand on top of a toilet, and then if they're just examining, because if your legs are there, you can see people's legs if you look,
Right.
if you go under like that. So I stood on top there, and then last call for this flight, last call. I hurled myself off the toilet, ran to the ramp, bounded the plane, got on the plane. This is last call. You know how they do a last call before a flight. Ran down the aisle, and the first face that looks up at me is Biddy Miscavige. I've told Biddy this story and she laughs. Biddy went, "Hi, Karen. Hey," because I was known and I knew Biddy. Biddy was being summoned to flag because she and Ron Miscavige Jr. were both married to other people. And Biddy was being summoned to be clobbered. Anyway, Biddy and I sat together, and it wasn't a nonstop flight. It stopped at Austin or Houston halfway, or on the way, it stopped at Texas. And I got on the phone and talked to Heber. And he said, "You left? This is the first time Heber heard of it." I said, yeah, I'm coming to Los Angeles. And Heber couldn't believe it. And he said, was it an unauthorized leave? I said, no, David Mayo. And I read the David Mayo's thing that Karen is to leave. So Heber was happy, and he knew what time I was arriving. But I'll tell you, my heart was palpitating when you are leaving and they're chasing you over the loudspeaker.
Oh yeah.
And and they had people at the airport looking for me.
Yeah.
This was like a daring thing to do, but it was legitimate.
Yeah.
David Mayo said, a trade, they were getting a replacement.
Yeah.
Anyway, I arrived. I was at Celebrity Center the next day. Sue, who was the Sue who, Jenny, you would know her well from Free Winds. She was Sue
Price.
Sue Price was IJC at the time.
Okay.
And she summoned me out of my CS office at Celebrity Center and said, "Karen, you're going to be commented for blowing." And I argued with her. "Sue, I didn't blow." Where's the blow? By the way, I keep using the word blow. Blow is departing Scientology unauthorized, leaving on your own determinism, not unauthorized. And I said, "Where did I blow? I came from flag to Celebrity Center on David Mayo's order, and I'm on post." And she was a blow is when you take off from Scientology, not when you transfer from one unit to another. Anyway, she had waved. Flag was furious at me, and then it fizzled, and the comment was canceled.
Good.
And then I was Celebrity Center. That's when I ordered Lisa. That's when Priscilla Presley would bring Lisa. And because even though I was the class 12 CS, because Lisa Presley was such a celeb, being the daughter of Elvis Presley, I was assigned to audit her. So, which I did so daily. But that was all part of my Celebrity Center time track.
Right.
Anyway,
right.
I fled the flag land base to join my husband, and I got an almost comment, which then got canceled, and I didn't.
Good story. Good story.
Yeah. Hey, I want to add this. This now. This is another good thing. Janice, Heber was the officiant at your wedding. Isn't that right, to Paul?
That's
yes,
so nice.
he was. Yeah. And in this picture is Kay Gonslin, who is my dad's girlfriend at the time. And then Paul, Heber, myself, and my dad, Peter Gillham. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's another photo here too. That's
and
also
yeah, there's
part of it,
another.
right?
Yeah, that's Peter Vogading, Jack Manning, Heber, Paul, Fernando, my brother-in-law, and my brother, and then my dad.
Yeah.
You know, these guys are, you know, these men are victims of 1970s tuxedo style.
It was 19.
I wore a similar
November.
one. I wore a similar one in 1976 to my prom.
Yeah. Now that was November 1980. We were out of the 70s. We were in the 80s. Yeah, and there's Heber officiating. And a little Justine Lipton right there is my little flower girl. She's now the age, you know, ready to be a grandma type. Anyway.
Whose daughter
Kenny
was Justine? Oh, Kenny Lipton's daughter. Oh,
Kenny and Mickey Lipton's daughter. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Here, this was here's a great picture here. This was at the pyramids outside of Mexico City, the Sun and the Moon pyramids.
Oh.
Mom and Hebrew and Paquil Tari and Al Rabisi and Gay Rabisi went down to Mexico, and Terry and I were on leave in Phoenix. So we then caught a flight and joined them down in Mexico for a few days. So we took some time off and went up to the pyramids. And Heber is up there telling Terry and I where the entrance is. And it was calm at first until he started telling us that the entrance is down this way. And suddenly the clouds started coming in and the wind was blowing at us. And then Heber is like talking to the gods to stop the storm starting.
Great shot.
Yeah. And Wilfredo Pareto, I don't know where he is now, but yeah, anyway, we had a great time down in Mexico City. And then I have some other pictures here. Oh, here's Heber. You can hardly see him. He's actually in the right behind that candlestick. And Quentin Hubbard, when they went to Los Angeles for a, Quentin and Diana went for a couple of events. And there's Heber again and Chick Carriere over there on the left. And my mom is facing Heber. And then, we, in 1975 or 6, my sister and I took a leave of absence, and my sister was married to Jerry Armstrong at the time. And Mom arranged to take a week off, which she'd never done before. So she arranged a week off, and Heber arranged a week off. And Cass Warner had a ranch out in the Santa Barbara area. Yeah. So Cass said, stay at my place and just have a great time with the family. So there's Mom and Heber there. And then this is Heber's car. This is the car that had the coat hanger as the antenna. And there's Jerry, Terry, and I in the back there. And that's what we drove up to Santa Barbara in, with Heber driving and Mom. And Heber would sing The Impossible Dream. Oh, yeah. And he would just blare it out, and he had such a great voice. And then my mother would try and join in, and he would stop and say, Yvonne, please don't sing. because her singing was kindergarten. She'd been a kindergarten director, and she used to sing kindergarten songs, and she could not carry a tune, as could neither my sister or I, but Heber was a great singer. And so driving all the way to Santa Barbara, he'd be singing away as we'd be going up there. And there's Heber there with myself, just hanging out. We'd all been swimming. And there's Heber and my mom on Wings and Cass's horses. We'd go horse riding every day while we were up there. And there's Heber leading the charge. We were out for a family. Yeah, we were out for a family walk, and he climbs up there and It's this way. He was always making things fun. And we went to the Santa Barbara mission, and there's my mom and me and Jerry Armstrong, who was my brother-in-law, and Heber.
Yeah.
And yeah. And that was like, we never had leaves with our mother. That was the only one we ever had. And we had such a great time with her.
And she passed away in 1978, right? 1978.
77.
77?
No, January 78, she passed away.
Oh. Okay.
And actually the anniversary is coming up in 1978. And so Heber and her married in early 73. And so the marriage only lasted like 5 years before she passed away.
Yeah.
And yeah, there we are, Heber, Jerry, my mom, and I up in Santa Barbara. And then here's a picture of Heber, Milton Casellas, my mom, Bobby Lyons, and Pat Gualtari. And what had happened, Pat says that he was on the sidelines and he saw them all posing for the picture. And Yvonne says, Pat, come on, get in the picture. So he slid into the picture. And that's what Heber's laughing about, is Pat sliding in there. And then, my mother passed away. And it was interesting. Years later, Hubbard, I had not known this, but Hubbard had ordered the Guardian's office to do an investigation into her death. And when the CMO, the messengers of Vicky Asnaran, went on mission to take over the USGO, I was her mission ops. And she found a file going through B1 intelligence. She found a file marked Yvonne Jentzsch. So she sent it up to me. And in there was their investigation and interviews with Heber as to, what was going on with Yvonne. And there was a couple of things in there that were of interest to me. People just trying to figure out, well, why did she die? How'd she get these brain tumors? And Heber had told me that he had noticed outside their window, there was, it was like something that gave off wavelengths, like microwave stuff. And he said it was like beaming through the window. And that was one of the reasons in the B1 file. Another one was just before my mom went down to Mexico for an event with Heber, they had dinner at Mickey McNeil's manager's house. And after she had drunk some wine there, she actually, her left arm went paralyzed. But she went to Mexico anyway and ended up with a stroke down there. And Heber had to send her back to LA, and he had to then finish off on his own before he could get back there to her. But there was all sorts of different reasons as to what the Guardian's office was investigating and coming up with as to why she got these brain tumors. And anyway, this here was in Clearwater after she was in Clearwater, and she was dying. So Heber went to Clearwater, and my dad had been in Australia. My sister called my dad, and he immediately, as soon as he got back from Australia, he and Kay flew to Clearwater, and my sister flew to Clearwater. So they were all there when she passed away. And then my brother and I, once she passed away, we found that we hadn't realized that she was passing away. And anyway, so my brother and I and Jerry got on a flight and got to Clearwater so we could all be there as a family and go to her funeral. And Heber handled everything. We didn't. I had no idea. This was my first dealing with death, actually. But so Heber just kind of took control of it all. Oh, and here we are. We're back at Santa Barbara. This is just Heber and my dad and my mom and myself and Terry. My dad and Heber both got along great. And they, Mom had been married to Dad and then married to Heber, but they got along really well. And even later on, Karen, remember when you and Heber and Alexander would come over to Dad's and Terry and I would be there, and we were still like a big, happy family hanging out together.
Yeah. Happy days. Yeah.
Yeah, those were good days.
Good days.
I want to bring up another thing that Heber was known for too, was that he got arrested along with several other people in Spain, right, at an event Heber, this was in the 1980s, I guess, and he was always the face of Scientology, speaking, at different events and that type of thing, particularly when it had to do with, religious leaders and things like that. But they got him and Mick Wenlock, right? I don't know if there was somebody else.
Yeah,
they got arrested.
there was a lot.
Pat Quilterry and him were jailed.
Mick Wenlock was too, because I remember that. But anyway, so Mick Wenlock was the CEO, DCO Europe or whatever. But anyway, they were in jail. I don't know for how long, but I remember it was a big deal when he got arrested, because they were charging, I don't know, Scientology or Hubbard or whatever with fraud, or I don't know. What was that? Do you know the story?
Yeah, and they were all being charged with fraud. There was an IAS event, and afterwards they all walk out and they were all arrested. And this is the second time a group of Scientologists had been arrested in Spain. It had happened when we were on the ship as well, which is another story. I'll tell that another time. But Karen, remember when Heber finally got released, they had you and Alexander come up to the base, and we were all at the Star of California, and Heber came up, and everyone was happy to see him and sympathized with him, and he told the story about being in jail and what it was like. And he just laughed about it.
Well, Heber was calling me multiple times when he was in jail. And OSA found out that he had done that. And they were horrified that Heber would talk to me instead of calling OSA. And I remember being summoned to a little room with Linda, what's her name? She's been CO OSA Int forever.
Linda Hamill?
Linda Hamill. She was sweet and kind to me, but she wanted a complete debrief of every word. But it opened with, do you know why Heber called you and didn't get in touch with us? This is the opening thing. I said, no, I don't know. So anyway, I remember he came back. The reason he got off away from, they convinced the judge that his mother was dying and he needed to do a short visit for his dying mother. That was the ploy used by OSA. And the judge did let him go for, of course, once he came back to the United States. That was it.
Never back to Spain.
Exactly. Oh, they had to put $1 million bond. They lost $1 million. They had to
because
put
he
$1 million.
didn't go back?
The judge said he could go see his dying mother, $1 million. And OSA came up with $1 million to get Heber back.
Wow. The other thing Heber's known for also was this was the religious freedom crusade in Portland, Oregon, after the Christofferson decision.
Yes.
That she was Julie Christofferson was awarded something like $33 million, against the church. And so Heber, that's Ken Hoden in the center, and Jeff Pomerantz. And this was a declaration of war against, religious freedom in Portland. And they led that whole thing, and then the judge basically overturned the verdict as a mistrial, and it was considered a huge win for Scientology at the time. But Heber was up there with a lot of other Scientologists, and he got a lot of the celebrities up there too.
Yes.
Yeah, the celebrities really, the celebrities really loved Heber. He got along great with them.
Yep. And then I was going to show. Let me just go ahead and show these videos too. This is you with your son and everything, right? This was Alexander. Was he getting christened, or what was happening here? Nate, what ceremony was this? There's Heber on the right there.
Yeah, this was Alexander's christening ceremony. There's a picture in there of Terry and I and Marshall and Heber. And
is that from this? That one? This
one?
Here?
Yeah, that one there. That was Heber was the officiant for Alexander's christening. And the godparents were my sister Terry, Marshall Goldblatt, and myself. And that was a fun day.
Is that Fran Harris on the right, the blonde?
Kind of looks like it.
That was Freddie. Who is Freddie? I always forget the last name.
Fred Harris.
No, not Freddie.
No.
Freddie, who worked
Freddie Friedman?
No.
No, that's
Frankie
Frankie.
Friedman. Sorry.
He still has sites up selling vitamins. He lives in Clearwater. That's his wife. She died.
Oh, okay.
She died. The blonde you see there died like 20 years ago. Mm-hmm.
I see. I just
That
thought it
was
looked like
his
Frank
wife.
Harris.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Freddie, he was guardian office for a long time and
Yeah.
always had
Uber?
health problems.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
can't
I don't
remember his
know.
last name.
I wasn't in Clearwater very often.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
So-
funny because, you know, and when you're in the Sea Org too, they keep you separated. Like Karen, you said you were in Florida and you were married to your husband who was in LA, and then you had to do this whole celebrity center switch to get you there.
Yeah.
Janice, you were on the Apollo and your mother's in LA, and you know what I mean? You barely ever see each other. You know what I mean? It's just crazy the way the Sea
Yeah.
organization
Family
keeps
means
families
nothing.
apart.
Nothing. Family has
Yeah.
no priority. The only priority is the expansion of Scientology. Everything else is way down the ladder, way down the totem pole.
It's funny. It's funny because, you know, people are comparing that Miscavige's strategy right now is similar to the Mormon Church, but it actually isn't, because the Mormon Church is all about lots of kids and lots of family, as you saw in Heber's polygamous family, is that they want lots of family, and Miscavige didn't want any.
Right.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, but you know, there were good times at the base where we all went together and we'd go to a lake and we'd rent jet skis and we'd just have the whole day off. And this was one of them. There's me on the left, and then Karen, Heber, Alexander, Fernando, and Terry. And you know, having Alexander definitely was, you know, we had a baby in the family. Which, you know, we weren't allowed to have kids or anything like that. So it was special to Terry and I to still be part connected with Karen and Heber and keep that relationship in. So,
Janice, who is this? This is Heber later, right? This is after we left. Is that right?
That's after we left, and I believe that is his stepdaughter from when he was married to Jane Jentzsch. After he divorced Karen, he had a third wife, Jane, who worked in OSA. And so that was his stepdaughter. I never met her. And Heber had lunch. And that's the last photo I have of him. I don't know what year it was. And I don't know if it was before or after the Free Winds, but that's the last picture I have of him. Now, you know, I have another story that, and Alexander was part of helping me on this, and Karen, but I had, through a connection, someone called me and said, hey, I've met one of Heber's nieces, and her mother, Carol, Heber's sister, had been trying to find Heber and get a hold of him. So I was like, okay, how am I going to connect these up? Here I am, the person that loves to connect people. So I go, okay, I'll call Karen, and Karen can call Alexander, which she did. So Alexander then contacts his dad and says, your sister Carol is trying to get a hold of you. So Heber actually calls Carol, who's like excited that Heber's finally called her. She hadn't talked to him for like 8 years or something like that. And she didn't have a way to reach him, because when you're at the gold base, you don't know how to reach people. So anyway, so Carol got to talk to Heber on the phone. And she told me later, she says, you know, I said, was someone listening? And she said, yeah, it felt like someone was listening to our conversation, because he wasn't opening up. And he kept saying to her, how did you get a hold of me? Who gave you Alex's phone number or got the message to Alex? And she said me, and he's like, well, don't listen to her. She's a liar, because, you know, I'm not one of them anymore. But Carol, it meant so much to her to be able to talk to Heber and get back in touch. And I heard that after that, he stayed in touch with her and would send her a Christmas basket and stuff like that. So that was a nice win for me as part of my trying to connect family back together.
Yeah, that was lovely.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
got two questions here I want to show real quick because we're getting here where we're going to
Yes.
end off here
Yes.
shortly.
Yeah.
Okay.
We
Well,
should.
this question is question. Do you think Heber was still lucid enough to understand what was going on when Scientology listed him as an officer of CSI in the 2023 filing?
No.
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 Yeah, I don't think so.
2023
No,
is
and-
just 2 years ago. His
Yeah.
Alzheimer's would have greatly advanced
Yeah.
by then.
And I think it was 2024, I believe it was. I actually ran into one of Heber's brother's daughter-in-laws, and she talked to Heber's sister-in-law, who apparently had been talking to Heber at the home and had said he was lucid in the mornings. Otherwise, forget it. There was no use talking to him.
Well,
But
didn't they even
that's-
do
that
like a
was just
welfare
hearsay.
check? Didn't somebody do a welfare check on him too? And that's when Nettie Alcock was there, basically as his handler, when the police or whoever the people that
Well,
state that looked-
one of the nieces did try and go to the base and do a welfare check, and Heber didn't remember her or really know her, so that she was kind of pushed aside. But when Leah and Mike Rinder showed up at the base, one of the cops went up to Mike, and that's how I found out he was in a home. One of the cops went up to Mike Rinder and told Mike that Heber is in a home in Marietta, out by Temecula,
In
and
California.
he knew that because his wife worked there. So that's how we found out, got confirmation that he was in a home, and that was through the policeman to Rinder.
And that's how many years ago? During the
not
aftermath?
long
That's
ago,
12.
maybe a couple of
Oh,
years.
that was during more than that. That was
No,
during the
no.
aftermath.
Yeah. The
Yeah.
filming of the aftermath. And how many years ago was that? I'm just trying
Probably
to calculate how many
6,
years he
8,
was. Yeah.
8 years
He
ago,
was
9
six,
years ago.
6 or 8 years ago. Yeah.
Can you
Yeah.
imagine? Heber was in the hole for 9 years and in a rest home for 8 years. That's what Heber had for the last 20 years of his life.
Yeah.
That's why the David Miscavige flowery praising of Heber in this memo is stunning, because 9 years in the hole and 8 some years in assisted living home. That was the end of that
Yeah.
was the last 20 years of Heber's life.
Yeah. I got one other question. This is the last question we've got here. It's, do you think they'll need to legally put someone in as president to replace Heber? If so, who would you guess that to be on paper, fill his shoes? I don't know anybody that I'm sure
I've been
pick
gone
somebody,
so long. I have
Yeah.
no idea who half the people are that are there. Most of the people I know are probably in the old folk homes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
unfortunate. Yeah, because we just
Yeah.
lost Jefferson Hawkins a few days before Heber,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and these are all people that Karen and Janis, you guys knew them you knew Jeff on the ship on the Apollo,
Yeah.
and then of course Heber at
Yeah.
Celebrity Center and all that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. Everyone's getting older, and that's how life is. So
That's right.
so be it.
Janis and Karen, have you guys got anything you want to say here before we end off the show here about Heber?
Thank you for doing a nice memorial on reviewing Heber's life and his ups and downs. Thank you, Mark. Thank you very much,
problem.
Janis. And thank
Well,
you
he
for
was a great
inviting me.
man.
He was.
You're welcome. Yeah, great man and well loved by many.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, he was.
Yes. Very, very much so.
Yeah.
Anyway, I just wanted to remind everybody, I hate to do this, but subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. We really appreciate that. And if you have any questions, comments, or stories, or we'll answer them. If we didn't get to them on the show, we'll answer them in the comment section. So if you have any questions or comments, please go ahead and do that. And anyway, I hope everybody enjoyed this remembrance of Heber Jentzsch. We try and do these of the people that were significant in Scientology in their history, good and bad. We've done other people too, but just people that we knew for many years. Anyway, we want rest in peace, Heber, and depending upon your religious beliefs or whatever your spiritual beliefs are, fly high, Heber. We hope to see you in the future for sure.
Say hello to my
Anybody
mother.
else?
Yeah.
Say hello to your mom. To
I am
yeah.
sure
And to
they went
Alexander.
up in some other dimension. You know,
Yeah.
Yvonne and Heber,
And Alexander.
And Alexander.
and Alexander. There you
That's
go.
right.
Yeah.
That's right. Okay, everybody. Until next time, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very
Bye.
much. Bye bye.